At exactly 3:17 in the morning, under a pitch-black sky over the southern Red Sea, a single radar signal appeared. And in less than 3 minutes, it would trigger one of the most dangerous multi-nation military confrontations ever simulated in modern warfare. At first, it looked insignificant, just a weak, inconsistent blip moving slowly across the radar scope at barely 12 knots. To any civilian system, it was nothing more than an aging cargo vessel drifting toward the Suez Corridor. But inside the Combat Information Center aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford, no one believed that for a second. Because what they were seeing didn't behave like a normal ship. It wasn't broadcasting AIS. It wasn't responding to identification protocols. It wasn't emitting any signal at all. It was completely silent. And in modern warfare, silence like that is never accidental. Within seconds, the entire carrier strike group was pushed into condition red. Operators leaned over glowing radar screens as the SPY-6 system began refining the target. Above them, an E-2D Hawkeye adjusted its flight path, narrowing its scan radius, focusing everything on that single anomaly. And then, something even more disturbing happened. The cargo ship wasn't alone. One by one, 3 additional contacts appeared on infrared tracking, almost as if they had been invisible until that exact moment. They formed a perfect triangular pattern, maintaining identical speed and spacing, moving like a single organism. This wasn't random navigation, this was coordinated movement. This was a convoy, and it had been hiding in plain sight. At 3:21, everything escalated. A burst transmission, less than a second long, was intercepted by signals intelligence. It was encrypted, compressed, almost impossible to trace, but it didn't need to last long. The signature alone was enough. Analysts immediately matched it to a classified Iranian military communication protocol associated with hypersonic weapons transport. That was the moment Washington made its decision. No hesitation, no delay, intercept immediately. Because if that convoy slipped into the Gulf of Aden, it would vanish into protected waters. And whatever it was carrying would be impossible to stop. Within 90 seconds, 2 FA-18 Super Hornets were already airborne, cutting through the darkness at high speed. At the same time, an EA-18G Growler activated a wide-spectrum jamming field, flooding the entire region with electromagnetic interference. The plan was aggressive but simple: blind the convoy, isolate it, force it to stop, and take control before it could react. But at exactly 3:24, everything went wrong. The electromagnetic spectrum didn't just react, it exploded. Growler operators suddenly reported total signal contamination. GPS vanished instantly. Link 16 began collapsing. Radar screens filled with noise, then multiplied, then completely flooded with hundreds of false targets moving in every direction. It was like the entire battlefield had turned into a digital hallucination. This wasn't normal electronic warfare. This was something far more advanced, adaptive, intelligent, reactive in real time. And then came the confirmation that changed everything. This wasn't Iran. The signal signature matched Chinese military systems. Somewhere beyond visual range, over 120 kilometers away, a Type 055 destroyer had been waiting in total silence, and had just activated one of the most sophisticated electronic warfare systems ever deployed in open water. The US wasn't intercepting a convoy. It had walked straight into a coordinated trap. And that was only the beginning. Because at the exact same moment the radar systems were being overwhelmed, the ocean itself came alive. Thermal sensors suddenly detected dozens of fast-moving heat signatures erupting from the convoy. Then hundreds, small, low-profile vessels accelerating across the surface at extreme speeds. Drone swarm, but not in the air. These were sea-skimming autonomous attack boats, each packed with high explosives, moving at over 60 knots directly toward the strike group. And the worst part? They weren't emitting any signals. They couldn't be jammed. They couldn't be redirected. They were already locked on. At 3:26, the situation crossed the line from controlled interception to full-scale survival. The USS Gravely immediately engaged its CIWS systems, unleashing a wall of 20mm fire across the waterline. Explosions lit up the sea as incoming drones were shredded one after another. But the numbers didn't drop. For every drone destroyed, more appeared. This wasn't an attack designed to win. This was an attack designed to overwhelm. And then, the real threat revealed itself. Deep below the surface, sonar operators detected something that instantly changed the entire tactical picture. A faint acoustic signature, then another, then multiple. Moving slowly, silently, Russian Kilo-class submarines, already in position, already aiming, torpedo tubes opening beneath the convoy. Now the trap was complete. Surface saturation, subsurface strike, electronic blackout, and a high-value target at the center. A perfectly engineered kill zone. At 3:28, the first torpedo was launched. The alert hit instantly. Countermeasures deployed. Evasive maneuvers executed at full speed. The USS Gravely turned violently, cutting through the water at flank speed as the torpedo detonated just meters from its hull. The blast didn't hit directly, but it didn't need to. The shockwave alone was enough to lift the ship partially out of the water before slamming it back down. And in the middle of that chaos, the convoy made its move. The lead vessel's deck suddenly split open. Mechanical systems roared to life as hidden panels folded outward, revealing what had been concealed the entire time. 4 vertical launch tubes, fully armed, fully aligned. Hypersonic glide vehicles ready to launch. This was never a transport mission. This was a mobile launch platform. Inside the Ford's command center, the reality hit instantly. If those weapons launched, interception would be nearly impossible. Reaction time would drop to seconds. Regional bases, entire fleets, everything could be wiped out before anyone had time to respond. The decision window collapsed. There was only one option left: neutralize the platform immediately. At 3:30, a single F-35C stealth fighter, silent, invisible, already in position, received final authorization. The weapon selected was the AGM-158CLRASM, a precision anti-ship missile designed for exactly this kind of scenario. But this was no ordinary strike. There was no GPS, no external guidance, no support. The missile would have to find its target alone. Inside one of the most heavily jammed environments ever created, it dropped. And for a brief moment, everything went silent. The missile glided through chaos, navigating pure electronic noise, weaving between explosions, evading interference, descending at high speed toward a target barely visible through the storm of signals. Below, Iranian fast boats surged forward, attempting to shield the convoy. Above, Chinese systems pushed their jamming to maximum output. Below the surface, Russian submarines prepared to fire again. Everything converged on that single point in space. And then, impact. The missile struck at a near vertical angle, penetrating directly into the launch bay. There was no massive explosion, no cinematic fireball. Just a precise, controlled detonation exactly where it needed to be. But inside the vessel, it was catastrophic. Fuel systems ignited. Internal pressure surged. Structural integrity collapsed. Within seconds, the entire platform began tearing itself apart from the inside. Launch aborted. Mission failed. The convoy broke instantly. Remaining vessels scattered in every direction. The drone swarm collapsed without coordination. Submarine signatures disappeared into the depths. And just as suddenly as it had begun, the battlefield went quiet. By 3:35, it was over. But not really, because as US forces moved in to secure the burning wreckage, a new signal appeared. Same encryption, same signature, different location, moving fast, heading toward the Strait of Hormuz. And that's when the truth became impossible to ignore. This wasn't the real operation. This was the distraction. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the real payload was already moving. And this time, there would be no second chance. So now the question is, if you were in command, what would you do? Go after it, or prepare for what's coming next. Because the next move might not be intercepted,